Hey everyone, welcome back to the Incredible India podcast series. I'm Sam, and joining me today is Taylor. Today, we're embarking on a really deep dive into a love story so extraordinary it truly reshapes our understanding of colonial history. We're talking about James Achilles Kirkpatrick, a British East India Company resident, and Khair un-Nissa, a remarkable Indian noblewoman back in late 18th and early 19th century Hyderabad. Our mission for this deep dive really is to unearth the hidden layers of their forbidden romance. I mean, this was a love that audaciously challenged every single colonial rule of the era. This story unveils the complexities, the nuances of interracial relationships, which are often just brushed aside in the official histories. What truly compels me about their journey is why. Why was this narrative so deliberately obscured, kind of buried by the British establishment? And what happened to their children after their own early tragic deaths? It's quite poignant.
What's particularly insightful here, I think, is how this deep dive offers you a shortcut, really, to grasping a pivotal, yet often overlooked, dimension of British colonial rule in India. It's more than just a love story, though it is that. It profoundly challenges the rigid assumptions many hold about colonial society. It really lays bare the immense human cost. But also, the remarkable resilience found amidst incredibly strict social barriers. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, well, their story became a powerful, living counter-narrative to the standard colonial account. Its themes of defying boundaries, they still resonate profoundly today. It proves that love, sometimes, can truly be a revolutionary act.
Absolutely. So let's try and paint a vivid picture of Hyderabad in the early 1800s. This is the backdrop, right, for this unlikely connection. And this wasn't just any Indian city. It was described as a vibrant fusion of cultures, quite unique in British-controlled India, because the Nizams, they largely maintained their independence.
hmm And that vibrancy wasn't just superficial, it permeated every aspect of life. You hear conversations on the streets in Telugu, Urdu, Persian, Arabic, even English, all mixing together. The architecture, too, is this stunning tapestry, Islamic structures, Hindu temples, and these newer European-style buildings all coexisting. And the bazaars, wow. You have to imagine these magical trading hubs just overflowing with merchants. People from Central Asia, Arabia, Europe, dealing in everything from precious gems, spices, rich textiles, pearls, diamonds. It was incredible. And it wasn't just about commerce. It was a genuine exchange of ideas, too. You had poetry gatherings, Persian, Urdu, Telugu poetry, music blending, Carnatic and Hindustani influences. Something distinctly Hyderabadi was emerging.
Yeah.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? How did such a melting pot foster relationships across these divides that seemed, well, almost impenetrable, especially with the colonial power dynamic hanging over everything?
It's a fascinating question. And central to answering it is, of course, James Achilles Kirkpatrick. He was appointed as the British resident, which sounds like an ambassador, but in reality, he held significant power, hinting at that growing British influence appointed to Hyderabad in 1798. And he was surprisingly young for such a critical position, only 34 years old at the time.
Yeah, and he was far from your typical British official. Kirkpatrick adopted this truly unusual approach. He embraced local customs, not just superficially, but with genuine curiosity and respect. He learned Persian and Urdu. He often dressed in Indian clothes, flowing Mughal coats, turbans, when it was appropriate. And he diligently immersed himself in Hyderabadi court etiquette. Even his own residence, the Koti residency, became this physical symbol of his outlook, blending European and Indian architectural styles. And he built this reputation for fairness. He respected the Nizam's sovereignty, which was quite something. And remarkably, he gained the trust of both the Nizam and the local nobility. This openness, this willingness for cross-cultural exchange, so rare for his time, that's what ultimately set the stage for the life-altering meeting we're about to get into.
Right. And on the other side of this extraordinary story, we have Khair un-Nissa. Now, she hailed from Hyderabad's absolute elite. Her grandfather was the Nizam's prime minister. I mean, her family was right at the very heart of power. Her name, Khair un-Nissa, it perfectly captured her essence. It means most excellent among women.
And she was raised, as was custom for women of her status, in the zinana, the women's quarters. But she received the finest education available: Persian poetry, music, religious instruction. She was betrothed at 14, again, as was the custom, but she possessed this intelligence, this deep curiosity, and, well, by all contemporary accounts, an extraordinary beauty that really set her apart. What made her situation slightly unusual, perhaps, for a woman in Purta was her maternal grandfather, Bahaudin Khan. He was a key advisor, had ties with the British, and occasionally brought her into contact with European visitors. Very rare. Her family lineage was fascinating, too, combined ancient Arab roots with Deccan nobility. It gave her this cosmopolitan background that maybe subtly prepared her for the unprecedented path her life would eventually take.
But despite these two remarkable individuals, it's so critical to understand the almost impenetrable, invisible walls that existed between British and Indian societies back then in the early 1800s.
Oh, absolutely. They were formidable. The British lived mostly in isolated cantonments, these separate military and administrative settlements. They socialized largely amongst themselves, and honestly, most viewed Indian customs with disdain, thinking Western ways were inherently superior. Any British official who, went native, they faced harsh judgment, social ostracism. And for Indians, especially elite Muslims like Khair and Nissa's family, contact with Europeans, particularly any kind of intimacy, risked their social standing, their perceived religious purity. And the strict purdah for women made romantic relationships across this divide almost unthinkable. And you have the religious differences. Huge barrier. Conversion carried enormous consequences. For a Muslim woman, it meant potential family rejection, social death. For a British man, it could effectively end his career, sever his ties to home. And on top of all that, class distinctions. British hierarchy, Indian caste and class systems, just layers upon layers. So against this backdrop, their story becomes even more remarkable, doesn't it? Almost defiant.
It really does. So, given these huge barriers, how on earth did they even meet? You have to picture the scene, the sheer grandeur of the Hyderabad royal court in 1798. Silks, jewels, intricate protocol.
Exactly. And it's right there, in that setting. Kirkpatrick, 32 years old, the new British resident, standing amidst this vibrant court. And that's when he first saw Khair un-Nissa. She was only 14 or 15, accompanying her grandfather, Mir Alam. And apparently their eyes met across the crowded Durbar Hall. Just a fleeting moment, but one that in retrospect seemed to freeze time. It signaled this connection, something that would alter their lives and, maybe even influence the course of two empires. For him, she ignited this curiosity he couldn't ignore, and for her, this tall Englishman perhaps represented a fascinating, forbidden world beyond the Zenana walls.
Wow. But of course, the immediate hurdles were just immense. Neither spoke the other's language fluently at first, right? They must have relied on translators, gestures. Kirkpatrick's Urdu and Persian were limited initially, and Khair wouldn't have known much about European ways. And then there's the constant physical barrier of purdah.
Right. But what's truly compelling is how these very obstacles, the things that would have stopped most people, they only seemed to fuel their connection. What started as maybe just curiosity quickly deepened. Kirkpatrick found, shall we say, clever excuses to visit Mir Alam's residence more often. And Khair and Nissa found subtle ways to be present, always veiled, always appropriately distant, of course. The romance really blossomed in the margins, through exchanged notes passed secretly, hidden gifts, intimate conversations conducted through trusted intermediaries. Both were risking everything imaginable: reputation, family, future. But their determination just grew stronger. Kirkpatrick started studying Islamic texts, local customs, and Khair and Nissa, in turn, diligently learned about English ways. It makes you wonder, what kind of extraordinary determination, what kind of courage does it take for two individuals to defy such deeply entrenched societal norms and expectations like that?
Their love truly began to blossom, but in ways that quickly became, well, scandalous. Their romance was built on these stolen glances through latticed windows, right? Clandestine meetings in hidden gardens. They even developed their own secret language, apparently, a blend of English, Persian, Urdu that only they really understood. How romantic is that?
It is romantic, but the consequences were immediate and severe. Rumors erupted like wildfire. Huge scandal on both sides. On the British side, Kirkpatrick's superiors saw it as dangerous fraternization, a threat to colonial order. His fellow officers ostracized him for going native. That was seen as the ultimate betrayal, really. Meanwhile, Khair's family faced intense pressure from conservative Muslim circles. Her grandfather even threatened disownment. Neighbors whispered. Former friends turned away. Kirkpatrick himself actually wrote about it in a letter to his brother, saying something like, "They treat me like I've caught some disease they might catch." You can feel the isolation.
Gosh, yet through all of this, Kirkpatrick underwent this really dramatic personal transformation. He wasn't just learning languages. He started studying Persian poetry, developed a deep appreciation for Mughal art, and he even switched his wardrobe sometimes, wearing flowing Mughal coats and turbans, which must have completely shocked his British colleagues. His own residency started to reflect Indian architectural elements, too.
And Khair un-Nissa, she was far from just a passive recipient of his attention. Born into strict purdah, she actively defied those conventions. She knew the risks, the consequences, but she risked everything: her family's standing, her reputation, her safety. When her family threatened her with another arranged marriage, she boldly declared her love for Kirkpatrick. I mean, that was an unheard of act for a woman in her position at that time. She faced brutal criticism, especially from other women in the Zenana, but she just never wavered. There's a story, possibly apocryphal but telling, that she told her mother, "A cage remains a cage, even when gilded with gold." It shows incredible self-determination.
Wow. But this cross-cultural love clearly came at a heavy personal cost for both of them. Kirkpatrick's career essentially stalled permanently. His reports were viewed with suspicion by the company, and Khair's isolation, separated from many of her family traditions, her community support. She created this unique, hybrid existence for herself, but it must have been lonely at times.
Definitely. And the legacy for their children became incredibly complex, embodying this hybrid existence. They were, in a very real sense, caught between worlds, maybe too Indian for England, too English for India. As
Hmm.
Kirkpatrick himself wrote, reflecting on their unique situation, something like, "We have created our own small kingdom where only our rules apply." It really reveals the profound personal impact of trying to forge that new path between two distinct worlds.
Then came what was perhaps the most shocking step imaginable for a British official in colonial India at that time. Kirkpatrick chose to convert to Islam. He took the name Hashmat Joan.
Yeah. I mean, this wasn't just a personal decision. In the eyes of many Europeans, it was practically an act of treason against the crown, against the company. But the evidence suggests he genuinely embraced Islamic practices. He prayed regularly, respected the traditions. For Khair, this wasn't just romantic, it was truly revolutionary. It solidified a level of commitment, of acceptance, that few others could ever comprehend. It just completely upended colonial expectations.
And they formalized it, didn't they? They solidified their union with a double wedding, a Muslim ceremony where he embraced his new name and faith, and then a private British ceremony to satisfy legal requirements back home.
He was remarkably astute in how he navigated this. He actually secured approval from religious authorities in Hyderabad, and the marriage documents were very carefully worded to legitimize their union in both cultures. The visual symbolism of their wedding must have been powerful, too. Khair wore traditional Hyderabadi attire, while Kirkpatrick apparently sported this blend of British and Mughal styles, a real visual representation of their unique fusion.
But the reaction from the East India Company, well, it was, to put it mildly, pure panic. Governor General Wellesley was reportedly furious. Company officials saw this marriage as a dangerous precedent. They feared their carefully constructed racial hierarchy would just crumble if relationships like this became common. Formal reprimands were issued, Kirkpatrick's loyalty was questioned, some directors even demanded his immediate recall to London. Huge backlash.
But what's fascinating here is that not everyone turned against them. Kirkpatrick's brother, William, became their fiercest defender. He used his own company connections to shield them from the worst of the fallout. And even more surprising, perhaps, was the support from prominent Indian nobles. They saw his marriage as a sign of genuine respect for their culture. There were even a handful of progressive British officials who quietly supported him. One apparently wrote privately that Kirkpatrick's cultural integration made him more effective, not less, as a diplomatic representative. Interesting perspective. And maybe their most powerful unspoken ally was simply the passage of time. The intensity of the opposition gradually faded when, no immediate chaos or collapse of authority occurred because of their union.
And their home, their residence, affectionately known as Rang Mahal or Palace of Colors, it truly became this physical manifestation of their cross-cultural union right there in Hyderabad.
Oh, absolutely. The exterior, it kept those British colonial sensibilities, Georgian proportions, that kind of thing. But inside, it was apparently a breathtaking Mughal wonderland. Intricate jolly screens, opulent Persian carpets, a central courtyard with a tranquil fountain. It created this private paradise. Kirkpatrick even commissioned local artisans to craft these stunning ceiling murals that seamlessly blended stories from both Western and Eastern traditions. Apparently, their bedroom combined a British four-poster bed with delicate hand-painted Mughal-style floral motifs, truly blending their two worlds into one harmonious space.
Wow. And their daily life sounds like it was a masterclass in cultural fusion. They effectively had to write their own rule book, didn't they? Kirkpatrick really embraced Hyderabadi culture, became fluent in Urdu, adopted local dress at home, even participated in Muslim festivals with genuine devotion.
Yeah, and un-Nissa, in turn, she introduced him to all sorts of things. The subtle nuances of paelan, that betel leaf preparation so central to social customs, the profound art of Urdu poetry, the rich pleasures of traditional Hyderabadi cuisine. Their dinner table must have been a true fusion experiment. Different flavors, different ideas mingling freely. Religious practices required delicate navigation, obviously. Kirkpatrick adopted many Islamic customs privately out of respect, while un-Nissa maintained her Muslim faith. They even created these unique family rituals, apparently. combining Christmas celebrations with Hyderabadi sweets and marking Eid with traditional English tea ceremonies. Their home was really a space where cultural boundaries just seemed to dissolve.
And then came their children, a son named Sahib Alam and a daughter, Sahib Begum. Their arrival truly cemented the family's unique identity, didn't it? Embodying that living bridge their parents had so courageously built.
Absolutely. Yeah. Their children received a remarkably progressive education for the time. It's a testament to their parents' vision. They learned English, Persian, and Urdu. They studied Western science alongside Islamic philosophy. Kirkpatrick really insisted they understand and appreciate both their British and their Indian heritage. Their family life apparently centered around that inner courtyard, a place where stories were shared, European fairy tales and Persian legends side by side. Even their clothing reflected their dual heritage, European styles maybe, but made from Indian fabrics. And their names themselves captured this duality. Officially William and Catherine in British documents, but affectionately known by their Indian names in Hyderabad.
But professionally, Kirkpatrick was really walking a tightrope after his marriage, wasn't he? His superiors at the East India Company just continued to view his going native with deep suspicion, and some British officials apparently outright refused to attend functions at the residency if Khair un-Nissa was going to be present. Awful.
It was incredibly difficult. But despite these immense social and professional challenges, Kirkpatrick's detailed reports back to the company actually became increasingly nuanced. His intimate knowledge of Hyderabadi politics, which he gained through his deep personal connections, well, it offered invaluable insights that no complete outsider could possibly have acquired. Which raises an important question, doesn't it? How can personal relationships, even really controversial ones, sometimes paradoxically enhance diplomatic effectiveness and cross-cultural understanding rather than diminish it?
That's a really good point. Sadly, though, their incredible story took a tragic turn. James Kirkpatrick's life was cut short. In 1805, he was just 41 years old. He died in Calcutta, far from his beloved family, battling some kind of mysterious illness while he was seeking medical treatment. And this left Khair un-Nissa incredibly vulnerable. Oh, absolutely devastating. You have to imagine Khair un-Nissa, just 19 years old, newly widowed, suddenly in this impossible position. The protection, the social standing Kirkpatrick had provided, it just vanished overnight. Her own mother-in-law, instead of offering comfort, apparently tried to seize property. Brutal.
Yeah.
And the British authorities, the ones Kirkpatrick had served, they conveniently forgot her position. It was like they erased her from official recognition, as if her entire life with him had never happened. Her own family, who had once disowned her, offered little support. She was utterly adrift. She did eventually remarry a Captain Ure, but that relationship sadly brought her more misery and the further loss of her inheritance. It's just a tragic fall from grace.
And then perhaps the cruelest blow of all, their children, William and Catherine. They were taken from her, weren't they?
Yeah.
Sent to England by their paternal grandfather, Colonel James Kirkpatrick. He was absolutely determined they should be raised as proper British children. Imagine the heartbreak. Khair un-Nissa never saw her children again. Never. They were raised by their aunt in England, systematically taught to forget their Indian heritage, their mother's language, eventually even their mother herself. They grew up thoroughly anglicized. Catherine married into British nobility. William actually joined the East India Company himself. It's just a stark, brutal reminder of the mechanisms of colonial power.
Their romance, it feels like it represents a road not taken in British-Indian relations, doesn't it? A brief, tantalizing window when genuine cultural exchange, integration seemed maybe possible before those imperial attitudes irrevocably hardened.
Precisely. Their story very quickly became a cautionary tale for other British men stationed in India. After Kirkpatrick's death, the East India Company significantly tightened its policies against intermarriage, explicitly discouraging officers from going native. They feared the perceived erosion of racial boundaries, of control. The British Raj would eventually enforce even stricter social separation between colonizers and the colonized. So what does this all mean for us today? Well, their story preserves this precious, fragile moment when two cultures genuinely came together through love, not conquest. It offers such a powerful counter-narrative to the typical colonial history. It reminds us of the human element, the individual story so often lost in those grand historical accounts.
And their extraordinary love story has inspired quite a few retellings. Most notably William Dalrymple's bestseller, White Mughals, which meticulously researched their relationship. The BBC also adapted their story for radio, I believe. And Indian historians are increasingly recognizing Khair un-Nissa's own profound significance in this narrative.
Yeah, their romance has become this powerful symbol, a symbol of cross-cultural possibility. And its tragic ending serves as this poignant reminder of the profound human cost of empire. In films, novels, historical accounts, they represent both that promise of understanding and the devastating consequences when power imbalances corrupt even the most sincere connections. And today, their descendants live on in both India and Britain, living legacy, really, of a love that defied immense boundaries, even if it couldn't ultimately overcome them entirely in their own lifetime.
The incredible tale of Kirkpatrick and Khair, un-Nissa, it really stands as a powerful testament, doesn't it, to love's ability to transcend cultural boundaries, religious differences, even the most entrenched societal expectations. The relationship, once hidden, forbidden, now serves as this fascinating, moving window into a really complex historical period, and it stands as an enduring reminder that the heart ultimately often recognizes no boundaries. What stands out to you most about this incredible deep dive we've taken today? If you decide to travel to Hyderabad, we do have a recommendation. Five Senses Tours organizes tours across India, which are immersive cultural experiences. You can email contact@fivesensestours.com. Just note that Five Sense is written as a numeral and contact at fivesensestours.com. Or you can WhatsApp them at +919 8456 774446.